We open both a new liturgical season and a new liturgical year. And what might strike us first about this new year is it comes before the calendar new year. And rather than by marking time by dividing it into 12 months and 4 seasons, according to the phases of the natural world, the Church takes note of those times and seasons of nature and uses them as a structure to place her own events, times and seasons. What for the Northern Hemisphere is approaching the darkest and coldest time of the year, when nature is dormant, becomes something different in the Church's calendar. Because Advent, like all the Church's times and seasons, has a very different content. The year is organized around the story of the dealings between God and his human creature, a story that is more than simply a keeping alive of particular history. It is the story which gives us our origins, our past, but also which brings alive our present and promises us a future. When we think of the normal calendar New Year, ushered in by the enforced fun of New Year's Eve, we think very often of the way in which people like to see it as a moment to reboot their lives. Gym subscriptions are started in their thousands, people drop the drink for dry January, new languages start being learned, and so on. It is the time to change our ways with New Year's resolutions. Many of them good things, of course, recognizing excesses of alcohol or lack of exercise as damaging, or desiring to communicate with more people to broaden our horizons, and then doing something about those things. And the Church's New Year should have something of a reboot for us as Christians. But we should note that the reboot is not a self-imposed exercise. What we are to do is given to us, proposed by the liturgy, by the season. This is always the case for us during the Church's year. At various times as the year goes by, the Church puts before us the particular mysteries of our salvation. And so we might say, as always, it is God who makes the first move. And that first move that God makes is very explicit as Advent begins, and it's shot through our readings today. Jesus is talking to the disciples about the need for readiness for the coming of God, the coming of the Son of Man at the end of time. So the first thing to note there is that God is indeed coming. That movement towards us, which is a constant part of salvation history, is still there. And it's not only that. We have the benefit of the history of salvation to know that time and again he is indeed faithful to his promises. We know that what he has said he will do, he has done. And so it is with us now. His coming is not just a historical coming into the world through the mystery of the Incarnation. It is how he continues to come to us, and will come definitively on that last day. So that describes the first movement of God. There is the question of our response, our first move in response to his first move. And the readings make it clear that the task we are given is to be ready, to be alert and awake for that coming of God. So we notice here that the impulse of grace of this season runs very much against the impulse of nature, which is indeed to sleep or to hibernate. So what does it mean then for us to be alert, awake, ready for the coming of God? Well, perhaps that first movement, above all on this first Sunday of Advent on our part, should be an awakening of our desire for God. And if this is indeed correct, we perhaps can see why we might be classed as being asleep. If our desire for God comes alive at the beginning of this Advent, then we know that our movement towards him, who is constantly coming to seek us, will follow. So above all at this point, let's recognize that whilst our natural desire has been to close down and to hibernate, our supernatural desire for God may well have done the same thing. It would therefore be wise for us to ask the Lord, first of all, to rekindle our desire for him. Then perhaps we will discover him present and close to us in this Advent season.